Paris, 1943. The city moved as though it were holding its breath, its cobblestones dimmed beneath curfews and shadows that stretched longer than the street lamps could tame. Every window seemed to listen, every stairwell seemed to remember, and in the narrow rooms where families gathered close, whispers felt louder than shouts. Children learned to tuck their laughter behind their ribs, and mothers taught their hands to tremble only where no one could see. In our small apartment on Rue des Trois Frères, the air quivered with the tension of unsent letters, unworn shoes, and unspoken fear. It was in that apartment that I last heard Lucien's voice, soft, hesitant, carrying the warmth of a boy who was trying to sound braver than he felt. He was 14, though he still left his socks balled in the corners and forgot where he put his pencil. His hair curled at the edges when it grew too long, and he had a habit of humming the same tune each morning as he tied his scarf, a tune he had learned from a neighbor long before the world turned unkind. In those years, the walls felt thinner. Silence became a form of prayer, and a footstep in the hallway made hearts pause. Yet inside, Lucien still found pockets of boyhood, drawing tiny maps of places he dreamed of visiting, tracing Seine boats through foggy windows, memorizing the shape of pigeons perched on the balcony railing. He clung to small joys the way others clung to ration cards. And now I find myself writing into a quiet that has grown too deep, trying to gather his fading echoes before they slip into the city's dust. Tell me, reader, what do we owe the memory of a child lost to a world that never heard him cry? I am his older sister, Marianne, 3 years his senior, though Lucien always said I carried worry like someone twice my age. From our attic window, we watched Paris change. We watched neighbors disappear, watched soldiers patrol with heavy boots, watched the bakery close earlier each week. Through it all, Lucien pressed himself close to the glass, his breath making tiny circles of fog as he whispered questions I couldn't answer. Together, we learned to fold our days small and hide them inside the cracks of time. Our apartment on the top floor was narrow, but it held the shape of our lives. The kitchen smelled faintly of lavender soap, the kind our mother kept hidden in a tin under the sink so it would last longer. Every morning before the city stirred, she rubbed a sliver of it between her palms, letting the scent drift into the air like a reminder that softness had not completely been outlawed. Lucien loved that smell. He would lean against the doorframe, still half asleep, and close his eyes as though the fragrance could carry him somewhere safer. Our father had been taken for questioning the previous winter and never returned. The silence he left behind settled into corners like dust. Mother tried to sweep it away, but Lucien held onto it differently. He asked fewer questions as months passed. Instead, he began to listen, to footsteps in the corridor, to murmurs from the neighbors' rooms, to the distant rumble of trucks that came at night. His drawings changed too. He no longer sketched boats or pigeons. Instead, he drew doorways, dozens of them, some open, some shut, all leading to places we could not see. I remember one morning when the fear outside felt especially thick, as though the air itself had grown cautious. Mother packed a small lunch for Lucien, a crust of bread, a wedge of cheese no larger than her thumb. She wrapped it in wax paper and slipped in a dried apricot, his favorite, saved from a handful we had hidden months before. Lucien's eyes lit up when he saw it, and he did something he rarely did anymore. He laughed. It wasn't loud, just a soft burst of joy, but even that felt like it might shatter the room. Not so loud, Mother whispered, touching his hair with trembling fingers. He nodded and tucked the lunch into his coat pocket. That afternoon, I walked him to the school that no longer felt like a school. The teachers spoke too softly, and the children looked older than they were. Lucien held my hand for the first few steps, something he hadn't done since he was 9. His fingers were cold. I tried to squeeze warmth into them. At the gate, he looked up at me. "Do you think things will be normal again?" he asked. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to promise him summers at the river and birthdays with too many candles, and mornings when the only thing he had to fear was a scolding for leaving his shoes in the hallway. But the truth pressed too hard against my chest. "I think," I said slowly, "that someday we will remember how it felt to be unafraid." He nodded as though that were enough. Then he let go of my hand and walked inside, his shoulders small beneath the weight of a world that did not belong to children. I watched him disappear through the doorway, one more doorway in the long line he had sketched. I still wonder, reader, if he knew then that not all doorways lead you home. That evening, Lucienne returned later than usual. Mother paced the kitchen, her hands restless, her breath unsteady. The clock ticked with impatient certainty, each second sounding louder than the last. When I heard his footsteps on the staircase, relief washed through me so quickly my knees weakened. But Lucien came in quiet, too quiet. His scarf was missing, and his cheeks were flushed from running. He went straight to his room without saying a word. Mother and I exchanged a glance, one of those glances that speaks in whole sentences. I followed him, gently pushing open his door. He sat at his small desk, the single lamp casting a trembling circle of light around him. I noticed at once that his lunch had not been eaten. The wax paper lay untouched in his coat pocket. "Lucienne?" I whispered. He didn't look up. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a piece of paper, crushed, folded, worried at the edges. He smoothed it on the desk with careful fingers. It was another drawing, but this one was different. It showed a stairwell, dark and narrow, with two figures crouched behind a door. His pencil strokes, usually soft, flowing, were sharp and uneven. "Where did you see this?" I asked. He shrugged one shoulder. "At school, near the storage room behind the courtyard." Something cold moved along my spine. I knew what he meant without needing him to say it. Children heard things. Children saw things. Children understood more than adults wanted to believe. "There were soldiers," he added softly. "They took Léon. Léon, the boy who traded marbles with him. The boy with mismatched socks. The boy who sometimes shared the last bites of his apple at recess." I sat beside him, my breath shallow. Lucienne kept smoothing the paper, as though he could flatten the world by flattening the drawing. "Did anyone see you?" I asked. He shook his head, but I knew it wasn't true. His trembling gave him away. For weeks afterward, Lucienne stayed close to the apartment. He no longer went to buy bread with the coins Mother tied into a cloth pouch. He stopped humming his morning tune. He stopped drawing doorways altogether. Instead, he started folding paper, making small birds, tiny squares, miniature envelopes with nothing inside them. He hid them everywhere, under his mattress, behind the books on the shelf, even inside the bread tin. Mother found one in her coat pocket on a morning when she could barely lift her head. It made her cry, quietly, so Lucien wouldn't notice. One evening during curfew, the building fell into its usual hush. The walls sighed, the pipes groaned, and the neighbors whispered through their doors. Lucien sat at the window, watching the empty street below as though expecting something or someone to appear. "Marianne," he said without turning, "how do you know when it's your last night somewhere? Before everything changes?" His question was so gentle, so steady, that I felt my heart falter. "I don't think you ever know," I answered. "Not until after." He pressed his forehead to the cold glass. "I think I would know," he murmured. "I think I would feel it." I didn't know what to say. The silence between us filled the room, thick and fragile. And somewhere deep in that silence, I felt the first tremor of the truth I did not want to meet. Lucienne was slipping into a world I could not reach. The morning it happened, Paris was wrapped in a grey so heavy it seemed to absorb sound. The courtyard below looked deserted, though I sensed unseen motion, windows closing, mothers pulling children close, shutters drawn with quiet urgency. Lucien woke early, too early. He dressed without being told, fastening his coat with careful fingers. When I entered the kitchen, he was already sitting at the table, watching the steam rise from his cup of watered-down chicory. Mother touched his cheek. "You don't have to go today," she said. "It's not safe." Lucien shook his head. "Madame Cloutier said we're reviewing the maps today." His voice carried a determined softness, like someone trying to anchor himself in the ordinary. But something was wrong. I felt it. Mother felt it. Even the apartment felt it, its walls holding a strange, taut breath. I walked him downstairs as I always did. At the bottom of the staircase, he stopped. He turned to me, his eyes searching mine with an intensity I had never seen before. "Marianne," he said quietly, "if someone asked you to help them, even if it was dangerous, would you do it?" My breath caught. "Who asked you?" He hesitated, looked away. "A friend." "Lucien." But he shook his head, a small gesture of plea. "Don't ask. Please." He stepped back before I could hold on to him. Then he slipped through the door and onto the street, blending with the grey morning before I had the chance to call him back. He never arrived at school. By mid-afternoon, the building buzzed with a panic so taut it vibrated through the walls. The neighbors whispered names, some familiar, some newly missing. I ran from street to street, searching faces, searching alleys, searching for any trace of him. Paris had too many corners, too many stairwells, too many shadows. It was Madame Cloutier who told us she had seen him last. She said he was following a small group of older boys who had begun carrying messages for those who resisted, boys who disappeared, then reappeared days later with soot on their sleeves and new hollows beneath their eyes. He was only 14. Only 14. I still see him standing at the base of the stairwell that morning, something unspoken, trembling between us like a thread pulled too tight. I didn't understand then. I understand now. He wasn't choosing danger. He was choosing purpose. A child in a world that stole childhoods, reaching for something that might prove he still had a voice. But Paris in 1943 was a city where voices vanished without warning, where whispers carried more weight than shouts, where a single misstep could erase a name as easily as chalk from a slate. For 3 days we waited. The silence became unbearable, thick, oppressive, pressing into our lungs until every breath felt stolen. Mother barely slept. I barely moved. And then on the 4th day, a neighbor knocked softly and left without speaking. On our doormat lay Lucien's scarf, dirty, torn at one end, but unmistakably his. The apricot Mother had packed weeks before fell from its fold, shriveled but untouched. I picked it up and felt the world fall inward. Some losses arrive without explanation. Some arrive with only a scarf and a silence so deep it becomes its own kind of grave. In the months that followed, Paris remained a city of whispers, and I became someone older than my years, someone who had learned the sound of absence, who understood that grief does not shout. It murmurs, it rustles, it lingers in the corners where sunlight used to fall. Mother kept Lucien's scarf folded on the table for weeks, smoothing its frayed edge whenever she passed by. Sometimes she carried it in her pocket, tracing the torn threads with her thumb. She never said a word about it, and neither did I. Some griefs require silence to breathe. One evening, not long after the liberation, I found one of Lucien's hidden paper birds. It had slipped behind a loose floorboard beneath his bed. When I unfolded it, I discovered a tiny drawing inside, a window looking out onto the city. Not our city of fear and shadows, but a brighter one, filled with boats and pigeons and sunlight warming the rooftops. His pencil strokes were gentle again, soft, hopeful. I held that drawing in my hands for a long time, feeling the weight of his small, persistent hope. Even in the darkest months, Lucien had held on to some piece of beauty. He had folded it into paper birds and tucked it into the bones of our home, as though he knew someone would find it when the world learned to breathe again. Sometimes, in the early morning light, I imagine him still humming his tune as he ties his scarf. I imagine him sketching doorways that lead to safe places. I imagine him asking me those impossible questions, and me searching for answers I never truly found. Years have passed, but I still walk the old streets of Montmartre. I still climb the long steps to Rue des Trois Frères. Our apartment is no longer there. The building was renovated after the war, but sometimes I place my hand against the new stone and feel the echo of what once lived behind it. A boy with ink-stained fingers, a mother with lavender soap on her hands. A family learning to live quietly, gently, in a world that often demanded the opposite. Grief has become a companion, not a shadow. It walks with me, softly, as though afraid to break the fragile memories I carry. Lucien's name lives in my breath, in my heartbeat, in the way I notice small things, the creak of a stair, the warmth of sunlight through a window, the flutter of a bird on a balcony railing. And sometimes, when the wind shifts along the narrow Parisian streets, I swear I can hear his faint footsteps, light, quick, full of a boyish impatience that no war could ever truly take from him. So I write this, dear reader, because memories fade when they are not spoken, and children lost to silence deserve to be heard again. Lucien was one voice among countless others, soft, young, hopeful, swallowed by a world that asked far too much of him. I cannot bring him back, but I can let his story breathe. I can keep his paper birds unfolded. I can keep his doorway drawings open. And I can ask you this, as the city lights flicker in the dusk. In a world that too often forgets its smallest losses, who will remember the child who whispered rather than cried? If this story touched you, I gently invite you to like and subscribe, so that more forgotten voices may find their way back into the light.